The story originates in the democracy of peculiar islands. They are located between the earth and the sky. 9 islands were located among the chaos. Wooden bridges are built between them. You can also see houses on them. That is, the islands are inhabited by people. Then you can see how the armed defenders of their edges flock to one of the islands. We also notice a certain man in a blue robe. After that, he appears there in full growth. He has long blue hair that is pulled back in a ponytail. The guy's eyes are bright blue. The skin is pale and bruised. In his hands he has a turquoise sword. The people are shouting at him. They are asking to return to them the weapons that he stole, looking at the people who ran away. He laughed at them, thinking that they were the weak link. The guy examines all the people gathered and says to himself, "I found it." Makes a sharp leap forward. He hurts a lot of people. Then he swings his sword and makes a powerful blow to the ground. He keeps attacking people. Even more people came running. Arrows are flying at the guy. He deftly dodges them without getting a single injury. Next, we are shown a close-up of the Jiyu sword. This sword has the strongest power. He is able to destroy the whole world by forgetting to heaven. Then the sky turns pink and sakura petals are served from it. In this situation, the guy thinks, why couldn't I become one with this ball? He gave himself completely to this blade, killed all his feelings, all for the sake of the ball. He remembers a certain girl named Mo King-woo. The guy does not understand why he imagines her image before his eyes. Brown loose hair, purple eyes, she performs some kind of mercy on a flute. The main character thinks about his feelings, maybe they stayed. Next we learn that this girl, with a special passion, loved to dance. Her dance conveyed feelings. King-woo always found time to dance. Next, the hero apologizes for it. The girl, noticing him, approaches and pronounces his name, Chu-young. She said she would dance for him all her life. But Chu-young can't be with her. He chose the path of loneliness. The girl left her lover in a carriage. Blood. The silhouette of a man's face is not clear. The girl was wounded. Chu-young noticed it right away. He will start running to King-woo's carriage. The girl is completely exhausted. The main character approaches her, not understanding how this could happen. He's crying. Chu-young lifts the injured girl. After the words about the hope of meeting in another life, she closes her eyes. Chu-young blames himself for everything. He raises his head to the sky and screams in despair. The hero's battle with the people continues. His beloved suddenly appears, with whom he is fascinated, not noticing what is happening around. He holds out his hand. The people who attacked the guy took advantage of the moment and wounded him in the shoulder. After that, the girl seems to crumble. It was a trick of Chu-young's rivals. He was very angry about it. Leaping high, he mumbled the overpowering power of the sword. Then there are 3 kings who threaten the main character. Chu-young has no choice but to blow up his heart, thereby burying everyone, including himself. Chu-young blames the blonde man who is familiar to the hero. After that, Chu-young falls into nowhere. King-woo appears before his eyes, who again leaves him. Next, we observe a completely different guy outwardly. He expresses a misunderstanding of what makes him look like that. The main character wonders, where is he? The unknown person says, you've finally woken up. He is met by a guy with blonde hair. The guy begins to introduce himself. His name is Tan Tan. Chu-young recognizes him as his partner. Tang Tang was the best friend and brother in martial arts. They lived and trained together. Then he disappeared without a trace. Then it became known about his death. Chu-young, after these memories, hugs Tang Tang, who in turn does not understand these actions. Chu-young saw a man at Tang Tang's grave. It was Shikayan Shan. He killed one opponent after another, then slowly rose higher until he received the title of Shikshing. There he also won the heart and lungs of the soul of the former master, the dangerous Wu Kayan Kayan. But now you step aside because I'm back. A voice familiar to Chu-young is being issued to the side. This is Shikang Shan. He has a casual dialogue with the guys. Chu-young begins to have an incomprehensible feeling in his stomach. Why am I so sick? As if something wants to escape from my stomach. Something strange is coming out. Is the reason I was able to go back to the past because my soul finally united with the sword of Ju-jai. The guys go to the village of Shizuyan. Chu-young gets nostalgic looking at the village. Next, our hero meets his teacher. All 9 islands are demonstrated. One can learn from the master's monologue. He hopes that at least one of his students will be able to become one of the 10 great ones and inherit the purple bamboo court. Chu-young remembers that the master went on a hike and returned wounded. The hero begins to recite part of the mantra, which surprises the teacher very much. Next, he asks the master not to go on a hike. He succumbs to persuasion and decides not to go. The teacher gives Shun Kyudan. This is a kind of candy that performs physical ability. Chu-young eats it. Warm energy gathers somewhere in the stomach. The next day, a man with a sword on his back and a girl who could be seen in the uprising of Chu-young came to the village. They came for the teacher's head, but Chu-young got in their way. Chu-young approaches the girl and starts telling her how weak Chu-young is, which angers him. He starts swinging his ball at the main character. who takes a step back and realizes that he is standing on a cliff. Chuyong gives birth with Chuyong and renders on his back. Chuyong fell headfirst into the toilet. His irritation is growing more and more. Chuyong also starts flirting with a girl, which becomes the last straw. Chuyong's friends come running in time. Shikayan shows strong sympathy for the lady, which further annoys Chuyong. The girl instructs to pass the envelope to the teacher. Chuyong suggests to Sister Wu to leave here. The next day, on one of the peaks, our main character tries to get to the plant. A snake jumps out of the cave with which he fights and wins the fight. He found the golden blood ginger. A pleasant feeling spreads all over the body. The guy begins to meditate and recite a mantra. Few people know its steel words. Ready. The guy comes down from the cave. Suddenly he meets a teacher. During the dialogue, the teacher gives advice to improve their skills. He tells the story of how he found Chuyong 16 years ago under his porch, where he gave him his name. The master gives Chuyong an artifact. The teacher said, the one who made this artifact was very skilled, since he could so skillfully engrave Chu on it. I've never seen anything even close to this, because this stone is the only one of its kind. I gave you the name Chuyong. Next we see that girl, her name is Kayan Kayan. That's where she's going to go. From the conversation of Kayan Kayan's father, it becomes known that he sent her on a dangerous mission. Some robbers came for Shikayan. They started beating him up. The teacher was watching this. Then the head and deputy of the village appears behind his back. They discuss Shikayan's strength, namely, and disappointment in him. The bandits beat the guy, and when they were about to leave, the main character called out to them and a fight began between them. Chuyong surprised the audience with his skill. He held up well in battle and won. After that, Chuyong leaves. The masters discuss its power. The head notices that now he really needs geniuses in martial arts in the war with the Tarna Da Zhao, which is gradually seizing their edges. Looking down from the mountain at their lands, the three masters continue to discuss the situation in the country. We are shown a map of the world and how much territory the country occupies in CJSC. Further from the words of the chapter, we learn that he sent Kayan as a bait to distract attention. This greatly outrages his interlocutors, because Kayan Kayan is his daughter. But for the head, his daughter is just a small sacrifice to the darkness. He believes that if a daughter was born, then it is fate to send her to the role of bait. Here's Kayan Kayan. She rides a horse, simultaneously seeing a dialogue with her partner. He notices the surveillance of them, points it out to Kayan Kayan, and she orders them to split up. They do so, but the chase also decides to split up. Kayan decides to jump off his horse. The girl throws the horse and runs away from the intruders. They shout, "Don't let her go." Kayan refused to be trapped. Her opponents say that they had inflated expectations about the girl's strength, which did not come true in the end. Kayan's opponents are closing in on her. They begin to take out the blade, but suddenly a man appears behind the attacker. The man's name is Bai Kang. He came to the defense of Kayan Kayan and told the opponent that if they had not threatened the girl's life, they would have stayed alive. The opponent tries not to show his fear and is impertinent. Tan Tan asks the question, who hired this man to kill Kayan Kayan? The opponent refused to answer questions. After the refusal, instantly a multitude of arrows pierced the opponents. They died protecting their secrets. Bai Kang instructs to move to Taiyang. The guys arrived at Taiyang. We see a certain palace. Next, we observe a handsome guy with lilac hair. His name is Tai Bu Chan. He is given the news about the people from the heavenly residence. Bai Kang and the guys came to him. Tai Bu asks the question, what happened during the travels? Bai Kang answers what troubles she faced and that they risked their lives. Tai Bu calms the guests, because they are completely safe here. At this moment, Bai Kang notices all the elegance and splendor of the crown prince. He rises from the throne and utters very important words for our heroes. I'm going to save your home. At this moment, Bai Kang realizes that they have found the right person. The training of Tang Tang and Chuyong goes the same way every time. Tan Tan is indignant. They say, Chuyong will drive him to death with such training because he always wins. To which Chuyong replies, you can rest and I will continue my training. Saying these words, Chuyong takes his blade out of its sheath almost without noise, which surprises Tang Tang very much. In response, Chuyong says that all kinds of art require perseverance and sharpening of skills. After these words, Tan Tan noticeably transforms and with the words that he is not tired at all, gets up and asks to continue training. But Chuyong goes against Tang Tang and says that the training is over for today. Tan is not satisfied with this arrangement and he is embarrassed. But Chuyong says that they need to visit Brother Shi. Next, we can observe the wounded Shikayan. He thinks about Chuyong, that he is to blame for his beating. In half a year, the competitions of all the heavens will begin and end, and Shikayan will still be wounded. Suddenly, for Shikayan, Chuyong appears. The wounded guy is outraged by his presence, because he is not happy about it. Chuyong came to report on his and Tang Tang's training. He starts talking too much and ate all the sweets that he brought for Shikayan. This really angers the guy and he jumps out of bed, shouting at Chuyong. After that, his body tensed up, as a result of which the wounds on Shikayan's body opened. Chuyong vouched for them to be bandaged. He overdid the bandages a lot. After that, Chuyong leaves to cook something for Tang Tang and promises to come again. Remaining at one with himself, Shikayan plunges into thoughts, where he expresses a misunderstanding of why Chuyong is so strong, how he has advanced so much in 5 days in his skill. After all, Shikayan is the first disciple of Master Meng Xiao, therefore he spends more time studying. He also promises to remember all the grudges he harbored against Chuyong and Tang Tang. He's clutching something in his hand. In his hands is a certain rare pill that the master gave to Chuyong. In 15 minutes, Tang Tang will come to collect water for cooking. Then Shikayan is going to dump this pill into the water. Shikayan, as planned, drops the pill into the water. 15 minutes will be enough for this priory to completely dissolve in water. We see Tang Tang's footsteps, a bucket next to him. He bends down to collect water. At this moment, Shikayan is thinking about the death of Tang and Chuyong. I'll let you die painlessly is what Shikayan is thinking. The new chapter refers us to previous events. By the time Shikayan sent the strongest poison to the source, the ignorant Tang Tang carries this poison cooking water. The food is cooked. Tang Tang, Chuyong and the master are sitting at the table. The food looks delicious today. Chuyong encourages you to start eating. Then the hero begins to actively eat. The master tries to stop him and tell him what is wrong with the food, but Chuyong does not listen to him and continues to eat. It turned out that the main character used a silver needle to check food for the presence of poison. The needle has turned black. Therefore, there is poison in the food. Chuyong is sure that Shikayan is behind the poisoning attempt. From the dialogue, we learn that the older brother took poison. When asked why do you need it, he replied that he was going to use it on rats. The teacher doesn't want to believe it. He asks Chuyong not to jump to conclusions. Chuyong knocks down the door with food and screams. Seeing the food in his brother's farts, Shikayan was visibly frightened. He says he's not hungry at all. Chuyong suggests playing a game. He jumps on the sick Shikayan. He takes him by the jaw with his hand and begins to say that he did not expect such a low act on his part, namely that he would try to poison the master. Also, Chuyong remembers how the master saved his family from death 7 years ago. Shikayan breaks out and is indignant, saying, "He is to blame for the death of my younger sister. She was weaker than him, and he was going to take her out of the house, you know. Thank God my father found out about everything. And their wedding failed, otherwise she would have suffered with him for the rest of her days. Every night in a dream he called her by name Chu Chu. Chu Chu is her name, do you understand? What right does he have to be called my master after this?" After that, the wall breaks. It is the master. It is clear that he is very angry. Shikayan starts yelling at the teacher. He refutes everything, saying that the guy is wrong. In a dream he was not calling Shikang's sister. Chu Chu is Chu Chen, the beloved of the master. They had to break up 20 years ago, but until now he only thinks about her. After these words, Shikayan begins to apologize. But the master says, "I taught you, no matter what life brings you, forget and live on. But this is a lie that you will not soon forget." Raising his hand, Chuyong stabs Shikayan in the chest. The master is watching this. The guy tells the master not to worry, Chuyong will deal with him. The master said to beat the shit out of him. Then he left. Chuyong thinks that he did not want to interfere at all. But what would happen to the master after 8 years in a previous life? The guy did not understand his problems. We see the hero sitting in nature, meditating. The guy's hands emit light. Next, Chuyong thanks the teacher for his protection during training. The guy has almost reached the level of a warrior. The master comes out from behind the tree and says, they say, he did not expect Chuyong to notice that. The guy, in turn, hints at a certain technique, meridian purification. Meridian purification usually occurs with the help of a master who made a breakthrough in his time. The master pours his energy into the disciple, thereby displacing all impurities outside. People of the master level and warrior rank must go through special training, strengthening the body and internal energy. Chuyong asks the master if he knows any training techniques capable of training up to the status of a warrior. The master says that he does not need it and he only wants his disciple to memorize the instructions. Next, the teacher turns towards the Droga home and says that it is already getting cool and encourages Chuyong to return to his home. Unexpectedly for us, Chuyong turned to the teacher, saying, "How stupid you are," with tears in his eyes. Abruptly and unexpectedly there is a rustle, someone runs past. Chuyong notices it right away. In the distance, he could make out the silhouettes of people. The hero jumped off the cliff on which he was sitting while meditating, starts running towards these strangers. He thinks that these are the people who want to destroy the heavenly level. The men in black managed to hear Chuyong, but did not see him. Turning around, they did not notice anyone and considered it just for excitement. The main character hid behind a rock. A voice orders the gate to be opened, which the servants do. There was a second combat warrior outside the gate. When he leaves, he immediately notifies his subordinates that he is going to train. and they should stay here. After the words "that's right," he jumps on the rocks, poisoning himself for training. The second combat brother, having climbed into the mountains, met with people in black. He asks why they took so long to get to this place. In response, he heard that because of the strong security, it was difficult for them to get out. Next, they began a dialogue about Kayan and Bao Kayan as they arrived at the secret Iron Cloud Kingdom 5 days ago, but they were attacked on the way. The man in black is surprised by the fact that Wu Yuling sent his daughter on such a dangerous mission. We learn that the warrior has fulfilled his oath in front of the Heavenly Arena and the Iron Cloud Kingdom and asks about part of their agreement. One of the men in black responds to this with the words, "Your agreement with the 5th Chancellor was that our army would support you in order to rule at the heavenly level. The government also agreed with this. But now this goal is far from being achieved." The army was seriously angered by such demands. From around the corner, you can see the silhouette of Chu Yang. The guy understands that Li Jin's song. This is the second warrior of heaven, has such power to negotiate with the government about such a thing. Next, we again observe the dialogue between Li Jin and the men in black. He realized that they were trying to get more information out of him, to which they answer him, so that he does not worry and tries to get something. They have a warrant from the Chancellor specifically for Li Jin. The man took out a box. Its contents began to glow strongly. These are the 3 pills of life Dan. One fruit of this fruit blooms once every 300 years. And it can heal any wounds, even fatal ones. Next, Li Jin asks to tell the Chancellor that he is ready for anything, if only it would help his wife to heal. In response, he receives that they will convey these words and say goodbye to the second military man. The men in black are leaving. Li Jin is left alone, looking at the moon and the night sky. Chu Yang listens attentively to what is happening. Silence all around. Suddenly, Li Jin lands on the rock behind which Chu Yang is hiding. He suspects something, but looking back, thinks that he was mistaken and decides to leave. Chu Yang must have been blown away. He exhales with relief and utters one phrase, "How did he sense my presence?" A tall man immediately appears behind him. The guy was spotted eavesdropping. The man asks to repeat the phrase that Chu Yang said earlier. The guy looks back. Behind him was Wu Yuling. Chu Yang called him Uncle Master. Wu Yu tells the guy who these men in black were. It turns out they are servants of the 5th Chancellor Kingro from the kingdom of Da Zhao. Chu Yang understands who we are talking about. He is the only one who was able to reach the rank of Chancellor at the age of 30. In the past, he was behind the assassination of Crown Prince Tai Butian. He also destroyed the Iron Cloud Kingdom in Wu Jin. He played with the entire Heavenly Arena and single-handedly destroyed it. He has no equal. Wu Yu says that King Ru is going to destroy not only the Iron Cloud Kingdom, but also the Heavenly Arena. He also wants to start a war between the 2 kingdoms. Wu Yu also says that the Iron Cloud Crown Prince is talented. Chu Yang says in his mind that in 3 years he will defeat him. Besides, King Ro deserves the throne according to the hero. Chu Yang says that he almost fell asleep from the man's speech and he needs to go to bed because tomorrow is training. Wu Yu hit the guy for his disrespect and keep talking about his own. Chu Yang fell asleep and got hit on the head again. At the moment of Wu Yu's monologue, Chu Yang plunges into his thoughts with the following content. "I remember how in a previous life, Tai Butian sent assassins, and the Heavenly Arena was destroyed. And so, everything repeats. If everything repeats, then what is the point of my return? I can't change anything. King Wu won't be able to be with me either and I'll have to watch her die in my arms again." The guy doesn't understand the meaning of his return to the past if he can't change anything. The guy goes into a rage. Lightning and an evil grin shine from his eyes. Chu Yang tells himself that he will try to change history. Wu Yu was struck by lightning. A certain voice speaks to Chu Yang. His words said that the guy was finally able to unite with the great sword and summon the dragon. People are walking in the distance. Chu Yang tells the master that he needs to hurry up and leave here. He does not listen to him and gets a lot of arrows. The 2 of them are diligently running away. Along the way, they see a cave and run into it. Wu Yu asks what Chu Yang understood from the words he said. Aaron replies, "In order to survive, the Iron Cloud Kingdom can hold its position in front of Da Zhao. We must use this to strengthen the Iron Cloud Kingdom and thereby get rid of the traitors." The master says that Chu Yang is wrong somewhere. He says that the guy should kill Shikayan, because this is the best solution. Chu Yang agrees, but on one condition: the master must take him to the Heavenly Arena. In his past life, it was there that Chu Yang found a piece of the Sword of Sorrow. This is the first step to change history. The guy has to find this part of the sword first. Wu Yu agrees and says he will distract the guards. Then Chu Yang and his teacher are chased to the Heavenly Arena. There is a small dialogue between Chu Yang and the master, as a result of which the guy decides to go on this dangerous mission because he must be able to protect himself and the people dear to him. After that, they split up and Chu Yang heads towards the Heavenly Arena. The master is angry at Wu Yu because he puts Chu Yang, who became a son for Shaoran, in great danger. He found the boy as a 3-month-old baby and protected him all this time, became a father to him, and his parents entrusted their son's life to the master. Shaoran prays that Chu Yang will return unharmed from the heavenly arena. Meanwhile, he is already on his way to a dangerous place. The guy is already at the gate. Entering them, the guy is surprised by the intense cold. He's trying to find the sword. Chu Yang notices a wall that is softer than it should be. He pulls out his sword and starts crushing the wall with it. We'll find the sword fragment. Taking it in his hands, he begins to burn strongly. The guy tries to cope with him with all his might. Chu Yang is in a lot of pain, but he doesn't give up. The sword of the 9 calamities has found its twin. The strongest ray from the fragment is aiming at the sky. This is all being watched from the palace by the very 5th Chancellor Kingro. At the peak of the clouds are Shaoran and Wu Yu. The master severely crippled Wu Yu for his careless words towards Chu Yang. After that, Wu Yu says that it would be possible to send Tang Tang to the Iron Cloud as a spy along with Chu Yang for the next year. The master takes Wu Yu by the shoulder and starts hitting Wu Yu again, shouting that he should not dare to endanger children. Suddenly, someone calls out to the two of them. This is Chu Yang. He returned from the mission completely unharmed. The master asks the question whether Chu Yang has learned new techniques. In response, the guy says that he is not sure about it and will check it now. Chu Yang raises his hand up and drops it sharply. The strongest airflow comes from this action. Instantly, Wu is under a layer of ice, which means that everything is out. Wu says that Chu Yang has apparently risen to the 5th level of the 7 stages of yin. Suddenly, Wu Yu's leg is pinched by the master, with the words, "This is not a joke." The master and Chu Yang decide to go home first. We need to prepare for the mission, which will take place in 3 days. Master Shaoran and Chu Yang returned home. They are immediately met by Tan Tan falling into a puddle, which greatly angers him, and he goes to take revenge on the offender. And again failure. Tan Tan is trying to defeat some huge creature that, according to him, got out of the pot. Chu Yang says it's his turn to fight this beast. Chu Yang starts a fight with a huge monster. H jumps on his back and grabs his gills, starting to squeeze them, and a huge fish begins to get lost and turn into an ordinary one. Tang Tang is in shock. This is the fish of spiritual capture. This is the treasure of the 3rd abode of the stars. If you put this fish in your room, you can increase your inner spiritual energy. This spiritual beast is ideal for training. We have only heard about it in the worlds. You can't tickle her, because she will turn into what we saw earlier. But Tan Tan was just tickling her at that time and she attacked him again, but everything went well in the fish in the aquarium. After that, Tang Tang says that he worries about his friend, because a dangerous mission is ahead. But Chu Yang calms him down and asks him not to worry. The guy calls for changing this world together, to which Tan Tan promises to work hard on himself. For the next 3 days, Chu Yang trained. Finally, the time has come. Chu Yang leaves the house and Tan Tan runs to meet him with a fish in his hands. The fish almost died and Tang Tang tried unsuccessfully to save it, which made Chu Yang laugh a lot. We see Chu Yang, who tells Tan Tan that their paths diverge at this moment and asks him to take care of himself. Tang Tang, wiping his tears with a handkerchief, promises that he will work hard on himself and help Chu Yang sometime. The guys wave goodbye to each other. Next, we observe the master Meng Shaoran, who stands on a cliff and looks at Chu Yang from above. Addresses the guy the words saying that he takes care of himself. The guy takes the first step and asks not to worry about him. Chu Yang sets out on a journey. He must change this world. Going on the road, he will change his fate, pass and see the white light. Also, the guy is going to ascend to heaven and overthrow God himself. Then the sound of horses' hooves is heard. They're driving a carriage. The driver informs the passenger that they have reached Coral of Vinzao. In the carriage is the legendary Dr. Dushi King. Then their way lies to the nearest tea house. They are met by someone's servant. He says he is glad to see the doctor and my lord wanted to meet him. Dushi, getting out of the carriage, hears this and asks the servant again. The doctor raises his head and anger and irritation are visible on his face. This is the 5th Chancellor of Kingro. He apologizes for interrupting Dushin's journey. The doctor is interested, while drinking tea, in what he can help the Chancellor. King Ro's monologue begins. I need your service. On the way to the Iron Cloud Kingdom to King Tai Shichen, Crown Prince Tai Butiana intends to take the throne from his father. Besides, he is not the true heir to the throne of Iron Cloud. The doctor interrupts and says that he does not understand the words of King Ro, but he continues. Crown Prince Tai Butiana intends to take the throne from his father. Besides, he is not the true heir to the Iron Cloud throne. There is a claim that only a true king can rule, and not a temporary replacement. It doesn't matter how smart the prince is, he can't change the fact that he is still not a king. Also from the mouth of King Ro, the phrase about the outbreak of war in the country of Da Zhao in a month sounds. We are being initiated into the history of the war between Da Zhao and the Iron Cloud Kingdom. More than 10 years ago, a destructive war began between Da Zhao and the Iron Cloud Kingdom. ironclad warriors dressed in impenetrable armor joined the battle. Emperor Tai Shi-chen was indestructible. In the end, Emperor Da Zhao couldn't even after sending the death squad. They didn't have a chance against Iron Cloud. And then an archer appeared and it turned the tide of the whole battle. His arrows flew at the target from a distance of 100 meters, and although Tai Shi-chen was closed, the arrow still wounded the emperor, piercing the body of that warrior. The arrow was poisoned with poison, but no one had an antidote. Left without a leader and with their tails between their legs, they were forced to retreat. Taking advantage of the chance, the Da Zhao kingdom seized part of the territory that belonged to Iron Cloud. The whole story of Kingro led to Dr. Du's request to cure Tai Shi-chen, because his life can be useful. The doctor is outraged by these words, because he will give his honor and break the doctor's oath. Kingro begins to blackmail the doctor. Then he approaches him and openly threatens, "Do not forget, Dr. Du, that your whole family lives in the kingdom of Da Zhao, and they expect you to return unharmed." The Chancellor leaves in his carriage and guards. We see Dr. Du's carriage. The man who drives the horses offers to arrange a halt for Dr. Du because it's already dark, to which the doctor replies, "As you wish." But at this moment, Du Xin has a strong dissonance in his head, because he needs to make a very difficult decision that King Ro gave him. This time it is tedious for the doctor to make the right decision. His thoughts are interrupted by the shouts of his guards. An attack is being carried out. At the moment, a shower of arrows falls on Dr. Duxi's carriage, which wounded his guards. Next, the driver of the carriage decides to attack the opponents, because his duty is to protect Dr. Du, and my husband makes a shield of yellow lightning, which repels arrows, breaking them. A huge arrow flies towards the carriage where Dr. Du is, but a brave man blocks her way. He covers the doctor with his body. There is a grin on his face and lightning sparkles from his eyes. The man uses the style of explosive fists. With a large number of blows, he causes severe damage to the threat. The man stands to the last. He can't lose. His duty is to protect the doctor. But then there is a strong outbreak, and we see blood flowing from my husband's mouth. There are some people standing behind him. He is in black clothes, wearing helmets with a red tassel on them. One of them has a red handkerchief. We can conclude that he is their main one. One of these people says that he is impressed, but at the same time he expected from the Flaming Sword clan that he was able to block that huge arrow with his bare hands. We also learn the name of this man, the famous Gao Chen of the Stone Sword clan. Gao Chen asks who these people are and why they attacked. They did not answer the question. The head ordered to surround the man and dared to attack him. Gao Chen is not a bit afraid. He is outraged that they decided to attack him with such a small detachment. We also see that someone else is watching the battle. This is a reinforcement. Their head utters bold words, "Dushi, prepare for death." The phrase, "Are you guys cool?" is being blasphemed from above. Shu Yong is being induced on the tree. After the guy is looked up from the bottom, he jumps down from the tree and uses the icy palm technique. Warriors immediately begin to defend themselves and defend their leader. Shu Yong lands behind the leader, turns his head, then the body. In his hand is a sword that is already at the neck of the leader of the army. Next we see a sword swing with blood. Gao Chen is injured. Opponents mockingly say that he is no longer able to shorten from their attacks, and with a cry of die he swings to deliver a control blow to the man. Then the phrase sounds, "Do not move." Shu Yong has taken the leader of the army hostage and threatens to take his life if they dare to harm Gao Chen. The guy holds a sword right at the leader's neck, which does not give him a chance to escape. The whole army is perplexed by this turn of events, and their leader begins to threaten that he will harm the whole family of Chu Yang. But the guy does not take any of his threats seriously. Because there is a blade at his throat right now, Chu Yang demands to close his mouth, or he will use the blade right now. One of the troops, who has a red handkerchief tied around him, asks for negotiations. Chu Yang says that now the whole squad has to leave here, and the commander will be held hostage until Chu Yang and the doctor reach the Iron Cloud Gate. If they refuse, the guy will kill him right now. The army agrees to this deal and is asked to keep the promise, to keep the commander alive. Then the army leaves, leaving the commander alone with Chu Yang and others. The guy exhales with relief, saying that they are finally safe. After that, the leader of that army threatens Chu Yang again. The guy turns his head in his direction with a snide expression on his face. Then Chu Yang threatens the commander with a gesture. He, in turn, cuts out the fright and asks not to touch him. The main character brought him to the post and smeared his foot with salt. There were a lot of sheep in the neighborhood, and these animals like to lick salt, therefore tickled the commander with their tongue. To attract attention, the doctor made a sound, at which Chu Yang turned in his direction. After that, Dushi begins to thank the guy, because he is alive only because of his help. He asks the name of his savior and promises to believe his duty. Chu Yang clarifies the doctor's name. After that, a tear appears on his eye and he immediately pounces on Dushi with hugs and shouts that he is the guy's grandfather. Chu Yang says that he has been looking for Du Xin for a long time, and they say he is the long-lost grandson of the doctor. He, in turn, expresses a lack of understanding of what is happening. Chu-young hugs Dr. Du and tells him, 10 years ago, when the war between Da Zhao and Iron Cloud had just begun, you stopped for a while at Tiger Peak. The guy stopped hugging Dushi and asks him about his memories of this period. He replies that he remembers how 10 years ago, he collected herbs. Chu-young interrupts him and asks if he remembers what he found there. And Chu-young begins the story. While collecting herbs, the doctor met the widow Lai, who fell from the mountain. He used his herbs and abilities to save her life. And under the cover of night, he used one of his secret techniques, along with her. At this point, Dr. Du interrupts Chu-young and says that he did not ruin his reputation in front of the servants. Gao Chen says in the doctor's ear, who knows what happened when you got drunk? But Chu-young clarifies that he was only talking about the girl's severe injuries and that Dr. Du helped heal her that night. Nothing else happened. After that, the doctor proudly scratches his dog and says how good his techniques are and do not underestimate them. Immediately after these words, Chu-young says that the girl got pregnant and gave birth to a boy, just like Dushi, from which he falls into a stupor. The doctor took these words as blackmail or a threat and began to remind him that he had guards from the Flaming Sword clan. He picked up Gao Chen in his arms and waved threateningly at them. But Chu-young says the doctor misunderstood him. The child belongs to the Wee Carpenter family and he got married right after Dushi left. These words further puzzle the doctor. He falls, hits the floor with his fist and asks for pity. Chu-young agrees to explain everything. After the doctor left Mrs. Lai, on the way back, he found Chu-young's father, who had fallen off a cliff while picking herbs. He had very serious injuries. Dushi tried a lot of techniques to save his life. And then, when he recovered, the doctor left without taking money from us. Moreover, he left them a bag of money. With the money he gave them, Chu-young's family managed to hold out. Then they prayed for healthy Dushi and made a promise he is their guardian angel and they will definitely repay him for it. Further, Chu-young says it hurts, but my father died 3 years ago when he went to Tiger Peak for herbs. He could not repay you with kindness, so he died in agony. It's a great luck that I met you here today and I can. The main character approaches the doctor and grabs his hands. He asks to be allowed to call Dushin father, to which the doctor only asks to let go of his hands. Dushi then asks how Chu-young found out about the ambush, if it was unexpected, to which the guy with an absolutely calm face points with his finger with the words over there. To the side where Chu-young pointed there is a cart with a lot of inscriptions. On the sides of this cart there are 2 workers holding a sign with the inscription Fresh News. Dushi covers his face with his hand and says he can't believe the killers are hunting for the doctor's head. Hearing this, one of the sellers says, well, we couldn't afford such an expensive trip, so we increased the budget by selling the rights to the live broadcast to the CCTV channel and renting a newspaper cart. We earned 5,000 from the sale of magazines and 70,000 from the live broadcast, which in the end amazes the doctor. He gets very angry and shouts that this news wagon was leaving as soon as possible, which they do next. Dushi says to Chu-young, well, you saved me and my people from death. The doctor does not have time to finish the sentence. Gao Chen interrupts him and says about the danger of going longer without Chu-young. The main character kneels and makes Dr. Du younger, so that he does not drive him away and begins to put pressure on Pity, reminding him of his dead father. The doctor finally asks for Chu-young's name. After this question, the doctor asks the following question, which sounds like this: the person who killed Shikayan is Chu-young. The guy says that this person is really Chu-young. This is a new chapter in Chu-young's life. With the support of the clan, the master who taught him personally, the brothers who cared so much about Chu-young, and the guy starts telling a story about his older sister, greatly dramatizing her. This story resonates strongly in Du Shin's heart. He says, with tears in his eyes, that he also loved his older sister very much at a young age. Night, we see a tent with arrows scattered around it. Chu-young meditates. He turns to the Sword of the 9 Disasters, saying that he is ready to learn new techniques. He is punished because the guy concentrated all the spiritual energy in his fingers. Chu-young does so. Sitting in the lotus position, he concentrates the activity in his fingers, which is clearly visible on them. The fingers emit light. After that, the guy has to concentrate the strongest flow of energy. The metal from the arrows turned into sand. He obeyed Chu-young. This is a secret technique of the World Master level. In turn, the sand from the metal from the arrows is collected into a ball. This technique is capable of making anything out of metal. We are being moved 3 days ahead. We see a cart with guards around it. In this cart are Chu-young and Dr. Dushi. They are having tea and the doctor offers to learn something new to the guy. Dushi holds out his hand in which he holds some books. The doctor says that they contain the works of his whole life. The man also said that he hoped that Chu-young would give them to someone. The main character looks thoughtfully at these manuscripts. The people guarding Dr. Du tell him that the Iron Cloud Palace is already visible and they will reach it soon. Chu-young looks out of the window of the carriage and hears the commander of the army that had previously made an attempt on Dr. Du, a reminder of their deal, namely that the guy should let him go. The leader of the criminal gang asks Chu Yong to answer and says that the guy is not responsible for his words. In response, Chu Yong says that he always keeps his word, holding out his hand to a man. Chu Yong's hand ends up on the back of the commander's head. The hero grabs and lifts the man, after asking him for 100 miles. Chu Yong dusts off his hands. Dr. Du says that the prince himself will receive them soon and this is a good opportunity to make new connections. But Chu Yong says he won't be able to accompany the doctor to the castle, because his mission was to get the doctor to safety and the guy to leave for now. After these words, Chu Yong runs away and Dr. Du and Gao Chen look at it with surprise. We see how Chu Yong quickly runs away. At this moment he has the following thoughts in his head. Dr. Du and Old Man Gao, you brought me to the light, although I wanted to enter the castle with you and see Tai Bu Chan, but this is not the best solution. I have to create such conditions for myself so that they themselves invited me to Tai Bu Chan. Next, we see Prince Tai Bu in all his glory, who tells his servants to find Dr. Du. The guards of Tai Bu notice a silhouette running at them. The prince marks his fast speed. When the silhouette approached so that the face of the runner could be seen, it turns out to be Chu Yong. Tai Bui knows the guy. He quickly runs past the prince. Chu Yong remembers his father being like a god on the battlefield. Everything around him was filled with hope, because everyone believed him. Only Chu Yong's father could lead them to victory. But the arrow of the enemy pierced his chest. Thereby he received a wound incompatible with life. The father fell to the ground. His comrades shed tears, despair, and hopelessness. At the same time, Chu Yong understands that the other has taken responsibility for himself. But my father was dying for his country. We are visiting the Iron Cloud Palace. Chu Yong, whom we now see in full growth, finally found himself here, having gone through such a thorny path. But then the guy's attention is attracted by a passing guard. He comes to the conclusion that the guards are looking for someone. You never know him. Chu Yong notices an alley, which he decides to run into. Taking all the clothes he could find on the street, Chu Yong appears before us in a new image. Blonde hair, gathered in a mohawk, short stature, a pronounced hump, and a lollipop in his hand. The guy notices that no one recognizes him now. Chu Yong is walking along a crowded street, where offers to buy one or another product are heard from every corner. The screams of a young lady can be heard. A bully is accosting her. When asked to leave the girl alone, the man replies that no one will help her. At this moment, Chu Yong appears. He takes the man by the shoulder, asking for forgiveness for the trouble. He throws it away from the young lady. The main character pressed him against the wall and rubbing his fists, says, "They say he is a hunchback from the fifth mountain and beats all the hooligans in this city and threatens to take all the money from the man." To all this, he replies that there is no money at all. Chu Yong looks even more menacingly at the bully and asks again about money. But the man reminds that he is just a petty hooligan. In fact, he had always wanted to work under such a bandit as Chu Yong presented himself to him. Now gangster groups around the world are looking for subordinates. The man tells Chu Yong that he is being chased everywhere and being under the guy's command is his last chance. But he looks at him in silence and continues to listen. The man continues to talk about his capabilities and why Chu Yong should take him to himself. Cooking, cheating, stealing, recruiting newcomers, running errands. He also lists what he requires, a medical policy and a salary. With all this information, Chu Yong swings his fist at the bully and hits him on the head. The guy says that he doesn't need a gang, because the only thing he is interested in is information about the Iron Cloud Castle. The bully responds instantly and says that Chu Yong has come to the right place, because he earns a summer job as a tourist guide. In parallel with these words, he rummages in some kind of... The chapter begins with a dialogue between Chu Yong and a girl with lilac hair. "Yes, how can I help you?" Chu Yong asked the girl. "You are the owner of weapons in the pavilion of the Heavenly Army. I came here to see the so-called heavenly weapons." She answered him, "I'm sorry, but you read the sign in front of the door." Chu Yong asked, after which the girl walked past him and answered, "Don't worry, the price doesn't matter as long as you sell real divine weapons. So this is what you call a divine weapon?" The girl asked, holding one of the swords in her assortment. We are shown that she took up a sword that shone and glowed blue, and she asked, "How much is this?" "The price of the sword is 100,000 taels. I would be glad if I came for a divine treasure." Chu Yong replied, "Yes." The girl asked, "You really plan to sell this sword?" Chu Yong snatched the sword from her hands and pointed to a piece of metal. "You see this piece of metal here?" he asked. Demonstrating his skill, he made a dash towards this piece. We are shown how Chu Yong delivers a bunch of quick blows with this sword on metal. After that, it crumbles into small pebbles, and Chu Yong returns the sword to its sheath. Holding the sword in front of him, Chu Yong said with a smirk, "Now look, this piece of metal crumbled into a statue." How the sword could cut through metal like dirt?" the girl asked in surprise. This is indeed a legendary sword that can cut even metal." And we are shown her surprised face. With a smile on his face, Chu Yong asked, "So my sword is worth its price?" "Haha, worth it. This divine sword is priceless and worth the price. We are shown the feet of the person who said this stepping into the store. But compared to the price of this heavenly sword, I'm more interested in, how much is your life worth? He asked. It turned out to be the uncle of the Dragon City Emperor. A traitor has appeared. He wants to take his life. I'll take all these weapons, he said. The girl turned and spoke. The second uncle, seeing her uncle, said, "In Thai." He ran away again. Looks like you're also interested in this divine weapon pavilion. This sword is not bad. I'll take them all. Behind him, his uncle's guard called out threateningly, "Hey child, hand over all your weapons if you want to live." Chuyong smirked in response and asked, "You want to kill me?" And standing next to Gu Duzeng, he continued, "Go ahead and try your best." Uncle patted them back. Not bad, he said. "Baby, if it wasn't for me, then your shop and your people would have died 100 times by now." He continued with a gloomy look. Chuyong asked him, "I follow the rules. Why do you want to close my shop?" "Because it's called the Heavenly Army Pavilion," another screamed. And at this moment we see the sign of the store. We are sent into memories from the uncle's past. 10 years ago, a bunch of assassins infiltrated Taiyuan. Instead of royalty, they hunted blacksmiths. Blacksmiths who had the skills to make good weapons were targeted. By the time the Taiyuan government found out about this, all the blacksmiths were dead. This massacre took place in the country of Taiyuan, and the soldiers no longer had good weapons. At that time, Da Zhao's troops under the command of the 5th Prince attacked. Since they did not have good weapons, the soldiers had to use low-quality weapons. The battlefield, which turned out to be useless. Watching our soldiers get killed on the battlefield, we couldn't even get their bodies back home. They were Taiyuan's best soldiers, but because they didn't have good weapons, they died in vain. This war is not the best memory for the citizens of Taiyuan. And today you dared to open your pavilion of the Heavenly Army in Taiyuan, Uncle said. From that moment on, he began interrogating Chuyong. "Speak, what were your motives?" he asked. "I'm sorry, I didn't know about it, and I had no such intentions," Chuyong replied. "Then why did you come to Taiyuan?" the second asked angrily. "My motives," Chuyong replied and showed one finger. "First of all, I don't like the 5th Prince of Ro." Then he showed a second finger. Secondly, he made a quick dash past Uncle Emperor to the guard and put 2 fingers to his throat. "With my level of cultivation and divine weapons, I could easily kill you." Smoothly bouncing towards Uncle Emperor with the same lightning speed, Chuyong said, "But I didn't. Is that explanation enough?" The Emperor's uncle whispered, "Could have easily killed me." Then he confidently said, "I admire your confidence, but with your current level of cultivation and your explanations, I still can't trust you." "Then I will tell you my third reason." Chuyong answered him. "How many people are in the country of Crown Prince Buchan?" he asked, to which the uncle of the emperor and the girl with lilac hair only hesitated silently. "And fourthly, my intelligence says that in order to have good relations with the wolf clan in the plains, the country of Taiyuan sent them a lot of goods." Chuyong confidently continued to speak to them. But, unfortunately, the wolf clan had already allied with the 5th Prince Ru. Emperor Uncle was confused by the information given by Chuyong. He thought in his head, if what he says is true, then Taiyuan will soon be surrounded. Where could he get such information? Chuyong continued to act smart and smirk while holding his index finger to his chin. Even though no one wants the 5th Prince Ro's plan to succeed, currently, he continued to argue. The 5th Prince of Ro not only has power in the government, but also has a strong army. He also has a hidden unit of golden cavalry, a force of 8,000 elite warriors. The guard, the emperor's uncle, and the lilac-haired girl asked with an exclamation, "Golden cavalry." They had a very worried look on their faces. And fifthly, our protagonist continued, "No one knows that the 5th Prince of Ru has 4 middle heaven level protectors who are in the lower middle heavenly protector stage." After another argument from Chuyong, the emperor's uncle, the girl, and Gu Duzeng reacted violently, exclaimed, "Battle kings, guys, leave us," ordered his guards. The emperor's uncle, to which the guard replied, "Understood. Young man, how did you know about the golden cavalry, which is the main secret of the country Da Zhao? Where did you get it from?" The emperor's uncle asked Chuyong. "It doesn't matter where I got the information from," Chuyong told him, "but the important thing is that there are only 8,000 of them. However, there is someone stronger than them in the golden cavalry." "This is impossible," Gu Duzeng exclaimed. "Martial king level masters, shouldn't they be in the union of the middle heavens?" He asked, "Why do they remain in the union of the lower heavens?" "Everyone is susceptible to greed," Chuyong replied. "Even emperor level masters are susceptible to it." "You're right," the emperor's uncle answered him. "So that's why the assassins I sent to kill the 5th Prince of Ru didn't come back even though they were king-ranked masters. With the protection of these masters," Chuyong continued, "no one below the heavenly level would be able to harm King Ru. Over the past 10 years, he has infiltrated countless agents and infiltrated every corner of Da Zhao. Our eyes are presented with a list of types of riders and their features. The bronze riders have the highest authority. The dark riders are in charge of the prisoners. The iron riders are in charge of espionage and intelligence. The gold riders are in charge of battles. The silver riders are in charge of treasury. And the black riders are in charge of murder. In total, the golden cavalry consists of no less than 30,000 people. And at the same time, a young general comes to power with Taiyun. But I suspect how Da Zhao and Taiyun secretly exchanged specialists. Is it a coincidence or? Xu Yang made a small sentence and finished speaking. Cooperation. The emperor's uncle was silent. After thinking, the emperor's uncle replied to Xu Yang. You're right, they cooperated. And whoever is responsible for this? Suddenly, the girl and Gu Duxing turned around, full of surprise. Uncle, what did you say? The girl asked him. Actually, I started working with Prince Ro 8 years ago. Uncle replied. Xu Yang smiled slyly and asked, in that case, shouldn't you be blamed for what happened? And here is my question. Who is the best at spying in Taiyun or Da Zhao? Espionage. Uncle asked. Bingo. Xu Yang replied. In these 8 years, you have sent quite a few spies to Da Zhao, right? Then how many people do you think Prince Ru sent to the Taiyun government? He asked. The emperor's uncle frowned and spoke in his mind. This child, we are told memories of 8 years ago. 8 years ago, when His Highness was poisoned and on the verge of death, Da Zhao came in wave after wave. Taiyun was badly damaged and was on the verge of destruction. Officials and soldiers found themselves in a difficult situation. They no longer wanted to resist. It was an extremely dangerous time. But at the same time, the 5th Prince of Ro made some terrible mistakes during the battle. His orders led many of his generals into our traps, resulting in the annihilation of their armies. This shocked us and made us doubt his decisions. It took a long time to understand his intentions. All this was part of the 5th Emperor. In order to win the trust of the people, he needed the opportunity to lead his people to Da Zhao. We are shown him in the form of a young man in a blue and white robe with a fan in his hands, pointing his finger towards Xu Yang. The emperor's uncle spoke. What you just said is intelligence, or you yourself came to this? He asked. It's not really from any intelligence, and I haven't analyzed it. I'm sorry, but this is a secret I can't tell you. Xu Yang spoke. After these words, the emperor's uncle laughed out loud. Secret. Interesting. We return to memories. In fact, in this war between Da Zhao and Taiyun, he wants to take a chance and become Da Zhao's crown prince. We see Prince Ru standing on a mountain in front of his countless army. But this is also a chance for Taiyun. The 5th Prince of Ru is greedy for power. But although everyone wants to protect their country and stabilize Taiyun, so we began to secretly work together. Now that the 5th Prince of Ru controls Da Zhao's government, Taiyun has been able to rise from the ruins. Leaving the store with the girl, the emperor's uncle finally said, no matter what secrets you want to keep, it's none of my business. Let those who have to pay for it pay. Xu Yang yelled at his back. Duke, but he interrupted him with words. There is no need to follow us. I love your swords and I know you won't part with them. In the 8 years of partnership with Prince Ru, Taiyun lost 270,000 people. These people became pawns of this partnership. I know that the history books will remember this terrible act. Then let the name of this villain be my name. Tai Lung Chen. Enraged, Xu Yang shouted. What are you thinking about this? I love all these swords, but I won't give you a single one. Go away already. Tai Lung Chen replied. Baby, you give me those swords and I'll be humble and pretend I don't want it, so you give me more. And laughed. He mocks me, Xu Yang thought. The chapter begins with a dialogue between a girl with lilac hair and Tai Lung Chen. It is very valuable and may be of great use to us. Is it true? The girl asked. You're sure of it, second uncle? Stop asking me questions. Tai Lung Chen replied. What are you doing here? The girl thought to herself. I should have guessed that the second uncle is not fooled, although I don't know the reason. He is clearly ready to go against the 5th Prince of Ru. Tai Lung Chen said. But why? The girl asked. From behind the pavilion of the Heavenly Army. He answered her. No one would dare to open a store like this in Iron Cloud capital. That's why I thought he didn't know the history of the Iron Cloud. So I'm here to see if it's worth betting on. The girl replied to these words. But it reopened the wound in your heart. I know that's what you don't want to tell people about most of all. Walking among his guards, Tai Lung Chen answered the girl. Just because I didn't say that doesn't mean it didn't happen. And since we're using him, he must know the truth. On the battlefield, I wouldn't want to see you make bad decisions because I kept the truth from you. I'm old, forgive me, he said to the girl. If you can't fight next time, don't ask me to help you decide. And I need to rest for a few years. The second uncle, the girl said, and with that they parted ways. At this time, Gu Duzing and Xu Yang were sitting and drinking tea while discussing the recent event. You really made up your mind? Gu Duzing asked while pouring tea. You know that once we enter this war, even if we are valuable soldiers, we can still die at any moment. I know, Xu Yang replied. I know about the danger. Still, I'm willing to die 1,000 times to save Gu Mio Ling. He murmured, I have the same goal and motives as you. That's why if you think it's dangerous, you can still refuse. Chu Yong said. Gu Duzing dropped his cup of tea at that moment and exclaimed menacingly, You think I'm a coward? Laughing, Chu Yong put down the jug of tea and said, I know Brother Gu is not like that. He poured tea into cups. Here, let's have a drink. On that day, I realized that I had another reliable and close brother, Gu Duzing. We see how laughing these two drink tea. 5 days later, Chu Yong got dressed and went to work. Brother Gu, look after the store while I go to get the contract. He said, Fine, go ahead, Brother Chu. Gu Duzing exclaimed with a laugh. Oh, what is this? Chu Yong exclaimed in surprise when he saw the ornate carriage. She shone all over and was like all of gold, with white horses harnessed to her. There were many accompanying guards behind her. This is the carriage that the prince has specially prepared for you. Master Chu, please sit down, said the servant, inviting aboard the carriage. Since he even sent a carriage for you, I want to know what he saw in you. Gu Duzing asked enviously. I'd like to know that too, Chu Yong replied. 5 days later, Chu Yong and Prince Tai Buchan were sitting and playing shogi. Master Chu, I see that you are aware of your strengths, right? The prince asked. Prince, please tell a child like me about this. Chu Yong replied. I can see that you are brave. It can be seen from the way you play shogi. You are a cunning, intriguing player. With those words, Tai Buchan made his move. Master Chu, your methods are audacious. They constantly expand your territory, but refuse to approach Tianyang. As well as the fact that you don't want to join the government and only help as a mercenary. Jianghu's ministers are completely different, but in Jianghu you have brothers, and in the government there are only the Lord and his ministers. It's like shogi, where the answer to the question, whether you win or not, is decided by fate. And the prince made another move. The prince was right, Chu Yong thought. Although Chumo is one of the Jianghu, and he is not interested in the struggle for power, however, this does not mean that he is mediocre. Although I only play on the edge, as long as I have Kai, I can turn a barren land into a lush, fertile paradise. Chu Yong said, a barren land, but to my surprise, she saved him. The prince thought in surprise. In fact, the prince should be thinking about how to break the strategy of the 5th Prince Ru, instead of talking about me, Jianghu or the government. Prince, don't you feel the same? Chu Yong asked. Master Genius, what did you learn in Tan? May I know what your first step in the Iron Cloud will be? The prince asked excitedly. The prince himself must know this by now. Chu Yong answered defiantly, with a piercing gaze. Here we see how a carriage drives up with words. We have reached our destination. The next step is. The carriage stopped and Chu Yong stepped out in front of the Butian pavilion, looking down the alley. He spoke. It was Grandpa Kan. In this frame, the author shows us how a crowd of silhouettes runs screaming. Faster, he is here. Here, we were introduced to 2 characters. Head of Government Butian, Minister Chen Ziang, and Vice Head Chen Yutong. They only informed me in the morning and immediately sent me to greet. No one knows who they take me for. One of them said, it was only through his connections that he got here, Mr. Chu. Chu Yong pays tribute to the 2 officials. You prepared the list that I requested yesterday. Chu Yong asked the officials. In response, the 2 of them looked at him angrily. If he is ready, please follow me and I will officially become an official. And Chu Yong walked towards the entrance. The fire will soon be lit. What a cheeky kid. Let's see how you do it. Chen Ziang grumbled. Standing in front of the people on the balcony, Chu Yong began his speech. The reason I brought everyone together is so I can get to know you guys. Therefore, there is no need to be nervous. Chu Yong glanced at the list and spoke. Please respond when I call your name. In this frame, Chu Yong began listing the names that were being answered. Here, among them was Liu Zuguan. Liu Zuguan, 3rd stage practitioner. You lost an eye in a battle against the people of the Southern Yuan 3 years ago, right? Chu Yong turned to him. Everyone knows about it, what you're after. Liu Zuguan answered him displeasedly. I want to check how blind your left eye is, Chu Yong said and jumped off the balcony. So, you've been training hard to use your right eye to replace your left, so you can use your hidden weapon just like in the old days. Please give me your hand, Chu Yong said and extended his hand forward, to which he reacted angrily. He squeezed Liu Zuguan's hand and said, the meridians of both eyes are intact, so your left eye is perfectly fine. Now tell me how you cannot see with your left eye when both meridians of your vision are in perfect order. And your Liu family's hidden weapon techniques combine the focus of both eyes on the target to inflict maximum damage. But you claimed that your eye was blind. Chu Yong continued. This is the secret of my Liu family. How did you find out about it? Liu Zuguan shouted angrily. Even if I told you that I spent these 2 days in the archive, you would still ask how I know about it. Chu Yong asked. So that's why you're pretty good kid. But if so, Liu Zuguan said, then you must die, and dashed at Chu Yong with a hidden weapon. This chapter begins by continuing the previous chapter. Liu Zuguan attacked Chu Yong. At that moment, Chen Ziang suddenly appeared, shielding Chu Yong with his body. Liu Zhuguan, you and I have been working together for so long, you really are a spy? He asked. In response, Liu Zhuguan spoke. Once it's all revealed, it's true. Chen Ziang made a quick dash with words without much effort, then die, and cut Liu Zhuguan in half. Behind them, the crowd began to talk among themselves. The official's gaze is not blurred, and he cannot kneel. If the elders don't mind, Wait and Chu Yang will come to apologize. Where is Men Yud? Chu Yang asked as he addressed the crowd. Someone from the crowd shouted, "Oh, it's him. Men is here." A gloomy man stepped out from the crowd. Someone in the crowd got angry. No, how could a brother be a traitor if he risked his life for Butian Pavilion? Meng Yud shouted, "Don't think that by gaining the prince's favor you really become a minister, you bastard." He turned to Chu Yang, after which he turned to Chen Ziang. Chen Ziang, there is an old man in the Butian Pavilion. Every time you just run away from the fight. How can you be so arrogant? I just asked for help in the investigation, said Chu Yang. Why are you so afraid? Help the investigation. Meng Yud asked indignantly. Why is nobody saying anything? Shen Zai, Chu Yang is clearly trying to deprive you of support with far-fetched speculation in order to become the leader himself. Get rid of you. The voice of Meng Yud was supported by people from the crowd. Big brother is right. He cannot be a traitor. These voices were interrupted by Chen Ziang. Everyone shut up. Do as Chu Yang said. When the investigation is over, you will be innocent. After these words, Chu Yang explained to the people, this is an order from the head of the cabinet. I was just ordered to investigate. If you pass my interrogation, it will prove that you are innocent. Men Yud could not stand it and jumped high. Hey you, I'm not stupid. But Chen Ziang stopped him. They made a synchronized blow and clashed with their fists. Meng Yud landed. Meng Yud, Chen Zai addressed him. You are obviously Wu Zong, so why did you hide your own cultivation? So no one believes me. Men Yud spoke. Even battle brothers suspect me. What is the meaning of life then? One of the people approached him and began to calm him down. Brother Men, take it easy. Why don't we just take it easy? Men Yud glared at him angrily. Fine. He grabbed a guy from the crowd and took him hostage. Don't come, or I'll kill him first. The crowd raised a roar. Stop, Men Yud. At least you understand what you're doing. Let him go. Chu Yang smirked and spoke. You'd rather take a hostage than explain yourself. If you're not a spy, then what are you? And why are you doing it? Chu Yang read the suspect with his Kai power. How interesting. The method by which the great Zhao selects talents is truly flawless. I don't even know how they manage to find powerful people like you. Led by Minister Zhao, no one is afraid to die. The crowd was indignant and the rumble rose again. What? Meng Yud, you really are a traitor. Grab him. Meng Yud became furious and shouted. Chu Yang, you deceived me. No worries. Chu Yang spoke. They are both on the same side. And he deliberately took him hostage and not someone else. Only a fool would fall for such a trick. Yes, screams are heard from the crowd. Chu Yang, you. After these words, that guy and Men Yud split up in an attempt to escape. The guy said, Chu Yang, you remember me. There were screams from the crowd. Grab them. But at this moment, we are shown how someone takes out a sword and with one stroke blocks their way and carries them away with a shock wave. The two traitors suffered great damage. Two silhouettes emerged from the dust cloud. They were Chen Ziang and Chen Yutong. Neither of us knew that we had made a big mistake. Please, Chu Yang, we will bear the responsibility for our guilt and punishment. Chu Yang replied, this is not a mistake of the officials, but the new plans of the prince regarding the Butian Pavilion, and they depend on the support of two officials. New plans? Chen Ziang asked in surprise. Starting today, Chu Yang said, the Butian Pavilion is divided into 3 teams. The name of the first team, the Blacksmiths. This is the main team directly reporting to me. The name of the second team, Blood. She is usually in charge of all tasks, but in the Butian Pavilion, this will be the work of officials. Chen Zai is ready to take the place of the head of the department. Chen Ziang exclaimed. And the third team of the Butian Pavilion, Chu Yang continued, will become an intelligence agency. I will transfer it to Deputy Chief Chen. I am ready to serve as the captain of the third team, said Chen Yutong, to protect the prince and the people of Chu. The two officials took care of the general situation, said Chu Yang, and I am very grateful to you both for being here. Chu Yang showed the list to the two officials. The remaining names of the innocents are marked on this list, and 2 officials can catch people on this list. 3 days later, the pavilion will be reopened. Chu Yang leaves first. Finally, we are shown Gu Duzing standing on the roof of the house, watching the protest of people who have lost their homes.